Welcome to the January 23rd meeting of the Conshohocken School Authority. Calling the meeting to order. We can roll call.
Sure. So Aparna Chibber,
Here.
George Bass,
Here.
Tina Sokolovsky.
Here. And this pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is our reorganization and the election.
Thank you. This is the one time of the year where I get to the meetings. The first item on the agenda this evening is we will need nominations for the position of chair for the Sewer Authority Board for 2024.
So we didn't really get to talk about it between the three of us. What would you all like to do? So we need a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary.
Correct.
So Tina, can you be the chair with your council position?
I don't know, that's why I was gonna ask that question.
I was wondering that myself, otherwise.
I don't think there's any prohibition to you doing both.
Comfortable.
If at any time we get our new members, can we reorganize at that point?
You certainly can. You're required to reorganize at your first meeting every year. But with a board like ours, where sometimes people come in and out during the year, nothing prevents you from doing a second reorganization or essentially reshuffling the deck later on during the year.
And sorry, and which three of these, so we only have three people, which three are essential and which position can we wait for?
So I think somebody's gonna have to do double duty because I think someone's gonna have to be the secretary and somebody's gonna have to be the treasurer, because the secretary has to sign certain things and the treasurer needs to sign off on some of the financials. So I think one of the lucky three of you is going to have two jobs coming out of here tonight. So
From a grant perspective, the chair cannot be the secretary.
yeah, I would not recommend that the chair be anything else in the chair.
Yeah,
And I would not the vice chair should probably just be the vice chair, and then whoever is gonna be secretary should also probably be treasurer.
I am comfortable with anything except the chair. That's okay. So you can,
Are you feeling the same way?
Yes.
All right, I will by default. I'll be fine.
Then I nominate Tina Sokolovsky.
Is there a second?
I second.
Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Tina Sokolovsky serving as president of the chair of the Borough of Conshohocken Authority for 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, and Ms. Sokolovsky, I will turn the rest of the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, we will look for a nomination for vice chair.
Do you have a preference, George?
No.
You don't.
I've been the treasurer for the last year and haven't done anything treasury wise, so the secretary does, so.
Would you like
Sure.
for to continue or would you?
Well,
Switch out.
it's really up to you. I mean, I'll take the vice chair.
Okay.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll make the motion for George Bass to be vice chair. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, George Bass becomes the vice chair.
That being said, I'll nominate Aparna. Can't remember her last name, or how to say it.
Chibber.
Chibber, right, that's it. As secretary and treasurer.
I'll second the nomination for secretary and treasurer of Aparna Chibber. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Aparna, motion carries. Okay, next up on the agenda is our appointment of our professionals. So we are looking to appoint the solicitor as well as appointing our consultant engineer. So this evening, I would put a motion out to reappoint Rudolph Clark as the solicitor for the Conshohocken Borough Authority for the 2024 year.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Rudolph Clark carries as our solicitor. So I will put, next up is calling for the consulting engineer. So do I have a motion for the consulting engineer for 2024?
Yes, I'll make the motion that Eber Engineering continue as the consulting engineer for the Conshohocken Borough Authority.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to Ebert and Clark. Next up on our agenda is the establishment of our meeting dates for our 2024 calendar year. We are looking to select and approve the dates, times, and locations for our regularly scheduled meetings of the Board of Directors. In our packet, we have a list of dates. The time is still 6:30 p.m. And we are continuing with the fourth Tuesday of each month. And there are a couple months over the winter holidays that we'll move it to the third Tuesday, all at 6:30 p.m. So those dates are January 23rd, 2024, February 27th, March 26th, April 23rd, May 28th, June 25th, July 23rd, August 27th, September 24th, October 22nd, November 19th, and December 17th. Anyone need to discuss the dates, times? Okay, with that, could,
Quick one item, George Ray has said on February 27th, he will only be available for a short duration by phone.
so I would anticipate by then we would hopefully have at least one or two other individuals appointed, so we'll see. Okay. All right, any other comments related to the dates and times?
I'll make the motion to approve the legal notice prepared by Ed with regards to the dates and times of the meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, they are, I have to hit my mic? I'm on my mic.
Okay, one, never.
Oh. Okay, okay, great. So with that, that will conclude the reorganization section of our meeting. Next up is public comment. So, do we have anyone online that has joined the meeting? Okay. Anyone in the audience have public comment related to any of the agenda items or anything you'd like to bring forward?
I didn't even know there was an online thing, but it's not even on the, is it on the website? I'm not even sure. It's, okay. Okay.
Hard.
Great.
Okay, no, with no public comment other than acknowledging that we do have the information for joining us via Zoom as we move forward, and that will be available
I'll make sure that there's definitely something on the slides. Things.
on the website.
Yeah, on the website.
All right, great. Thank you.
Reading the calendar.
On the calendar. The calendar, all right, I'll see what I can do.
Thank you for that feedback. Okay, do we have any invited guests this evening? So next up is the approval of our December 13th, 2023 meeting minutes. Any questions related to the December 23rd meeting minutes that any of the board has? Hearing no questions, could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 2023?
I'll
Or,
make a
I'm
motion
sorry, December 13th, 2023.
to approve the minutes from December.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up on the agenda are our financial reports.
I have my first, pretty much my only question is, have we switched over completely from Excel?
We're completely switched over to Excel, yes.
Have we shut down the other system?
We can still look at it, but we're not paying for any maintenance or anything.
So it's basically archived.
Yes.
So it's read only? Is there a fee to have read only?
I don't know if it's read only,
Okay,
but they did ask us to get rid of the Genesis backup that was on there. So they won't be backing anything up anymore.
But you have it backed up and you have the system. So shut down everybody's login except for one person.
I mean, I could do that.
Probably a good idea from the security standpoint.
I don't know. Yeah, I think there's only 4 lines. I'll make sure it's one and then.
How many there would probably be?
Yeah, so I'll just pick one.
Right. Right. Like I said, I had some questions on this, and I'll put them together in an email and send them to you, but maybe we can discuss them at the next meeting.
Okay.
Right?
okay, so in our meeting packet, for our payment reports, there is a payment report that is dated 1/1/2018 through 1/17/2024. So is this cleaning up all the payments
Yeah.
throughout the year?
Yeah, the reason that it has the 18 year on there is because there's all those cards invoices that haven't been paid.
Okay.
So it's always gonna have that until those are cleared.
Okay.
Those will start with that date.
Okay,
So it's just a matter of clearing old, if these got moved over from the old system,
Yeah, they
is that a migration?
Yes, they got
Okay.
it over and you can't pay them because you don't have any money in it.
okay, and then I have 2 summary sheets, one
One
that,
for December 27th.
okay, and then one for January to present.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
I can give you the total, you have the totals, but I can read them out if you want.
So the,
December is $101,695.10.
okay, that's what I needed to know. Which one was December and which one was
And
January?
January is the $84,801.90. So a total of $186,497. When I put mine on it, that goes, does that matter? Yeah. Well, we'll see. Okay. There we go.
Okay, any other questions related to the reports or payments?
The budget report. This is the final report for this year,
No,
I mean, for last year.
no. No, we're still entering invoices for December.
So it could be 45% of.
Yes. And I believe, we can check with Brent, but I believe a lot of that is repairs and stuff that were done in the plant throughout the year.
That'd be anything for the flood?
And some of the flood invoices and stuff like that are still in there. Yep,
Yes.
that we will get reimbursed for eventually. Yep. So they are not the final numbers.
When will we close the final book for 2023?
So I usually, like, I still have a couple of invoices in February a lot of times. And then I don't usually close it until the accountants double check and the audit pretty much starts.
So do we think we can have that by the end of Q1?
Oh, yeah, I think definitely, as long as the audit goes smoothly. I think I can, like I said, I can stop processing invoices probably like the beginning of February or so. And then it's just if there's any entries or anything that come up in the audit.
Is this Vice Row?
No, Brinker Simpson usually does the audit. That's, they audit every year. They audit the financial statements to make sure they're accurate. Major and Mastro come in every month.
Think the audits of the records were required.
Yeah,
Well, right, well, this financial is one thing.
that's the financial audit. Major,
Right.
yeah, yep. Now Kathy Seiler, and then, Major and Mastro come in every month just to check the books and make sure that everything, and they do the bank recs and,
So they make sure the allocation to the budget line items is correct.
yeah, yep. They check the invoices and that kind of stuff.
Have we ever looked into accrual accounting so we could close the book earlier, or does it?
I don't think that we've looked into it. I can talk to,
Let's see if we
Kathy
can talk to
and-
Kathy and see maybe for next year. Cause I'd like to try and close the book as close to the end of the year rather than taking it out into the following year.
okay,
Where if we can accrue whatever we've got for 2024 in December. Or in the beginning of first 2 weeks of January.
okay,
Can I just make a comment?
sure.
This, movement over to Excel to me was a big deal. Right?
Mhm.
Not that we should have a celebration or something, but it's recognized as a major success.
Have we finished it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I could.
Well, thank you.
It was,
It got off without a hitch, apparently.
yes, we've had a couple of little hiccups, but I've managed to,
That'll happen.
but I
It
managed to,
hasn't been raised to the level of a catastrophe, like, oh, okay, we can't go forward.
No.
Here we are, in 2024 with a new system. Okay, other than people doing their jobs. Nobody else is gonna affect it.
right.
Nice job.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations on a
Thank you.
successful implementation. All right. Any other questions on?
Make
the,
sure, make sure you approve the bills to
Yeah,
be
the
paid.
financial reports. Okay, with no other questions, the first motion I will ask for is an approval of the December 2024 unpaid report in the amount of $101,695.10.
Did you make the motion? I'll make the motion to approve.
And I'll
Okay.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Second motion I will be asking for is the January unpaid report at a value of $84,801.90.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then I'll do roll call since we're paying the bills. Aparna Chibber,
Yes.
George Bess,
Yes.
Tina Sokolowski.
Yes. Okay. Next up is an approval to accept. What?
Financial report?
Financial reports, there we go.
Make the motion to approve the financial report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Yep, I just make sure it's missing anything. Bear with me. Gone through my packet here. All right, next up on the agenda is our solicitor's report. So I will hand this over to Mr. Clark.
Thank you. And again, before I begin, thank you for the reappointment. As I was sitting here and thinking, we've been here since 2008. And that thought began to blow my mind a little bit that it's been 16 years. We have two action items on the agenda. I think Brent will most likely, they're listed on his report as well. Most likely he'll jump in here. The first is the consideration of a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken and Plymouth Township regarding metering. Essentially what this agreement is doing, it's really memorializing and putting into writing the longstanding practice that we have had with Plymouth about how the flows are measured and then how they are used to calculate Plymouth's operation cost contribution. Plymouth has not yet adopted this, but it's on their agenda for their February meeting, and it's anticipated that they will adopt it at that meeting. But again, as I said, this is essentially not changing anything that we've been doing. It's just kind of memorializing it and clarifying it a little bit. So it just makes it we're kind of eliminating the ambiguity, and this is something that Brent has worked out with Plymouth. So, I don't know if you want anything you want to add.
You explained it very well. I mean, basically, over the, obviously prior to my time here, that there was some disagreement between the party and the Plymouth. And basically, all we're doing is trying to minimize questions being developed. And this is the part of the process that we started last year to bring everything to formalized aspects of the work. It's a straightforward calculation how we're going to do it.
So with what you were already doing, this is just documenting.
Correct.
Documenting it now, so that way there's no there's not a thing of, even though we all agree on this, the agreement says something different. We're now getting rid of that disagreement.
And that is specific to the Plymouth Township resolution. Any other questions? Hearing no questions, could I have a motion to consider adopting the resolution approving intergovernmental agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken Authority and Plymouth Township regarding metering?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
The second item that we have on the agenda is an example of the problems with the supply chain benefiting us. This is a consideration of an intergovernmental agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken Authority and White Marsh Township Authority regarding the rental, use, and maintenance obligations of a jet truck owned by the Borough of Conshohocken Authority. Essentially, we have an old jet truck. White Marsh Authority does not have one at the moment and needs one, and can't get one delivered for some time. So we are going to rent it to Plymouth, $1,000 a month. They're going to insure it. They're going to maintain it. And then if and when they take delivery of their jet truck, they will return ours. This does not in any way disadvantage us. We're not sharing a truck. We're not waiting for them to return our truck when we need it. This is essentially an older truck. So, and in
We
the,
have a second jet truck? Oh, okay. So no harm, no foul.
Yeah, if you have a brand new truck, 2019. It came up with the idea, we have a truck sitting there that you can utilize, help another township, plus we can also fund, just get some income as well.
Great. Good out of the box thinking. Thank you.
and as always in these instances, in the interest of full disclosure, I am the solicitor for the White Marsh Township Authority, and Brent is the executive director for the White Marsh Township Authority. And they have not approved this as of yet. They will also do this at their, oh, they did it. I was not at the January meeting, so, yep.
Any questions or concerns related to the intergovernmental agreement? Okay, hearing none. Could I have a motion to consider the resolution of approving an intergovernmental agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken Authority and White Marsh Township Authority regarding the rental, use, and maintenance obligation of the jet truck owned by the Borough of Conshohocken Authority?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
Okay, next up is our engineers report.
Yep, absolutely. Head into my exciting time of the year is next month, we'll be going over the chapter 94 report. And what I just want to kind of go over is, and we discussed last month, is a different matrix. But really what we're going to do is we're going to kind of expand on the evaluation to also include the sludge, which is part of our report. But I really want to create a baseline of our sludge performance because we really want to evaluate it 2 or 3 years down the road. But we want to create that baseline now. That baseline is going to change because of the connection of all the apartment units. So you're going to have much less flow, but the same organic loading, which is probably going to increase, even though our flows won't go up much, our sludge production will go up, which is one of our single biggest costs. Besides, employees is sludge removal. So that's going to go up. You aren't going to see the flows go up. And it's going to kind of be a budget question for you guys of if our flows haven't gone up that much, why are my sludge costs going up by 15% if my flows only went up by 5%? And quite honestly, we can reduce I&I and reduce our hydraulic flows, but people put the same organic matter down no matter what. Like I can't reduce that by doing work on my collection system.
Why is, I would expect flows to go up. Also, why are the flows?
The flows will go up, but what happens with apartment complexes is most apartment units will use somewhere between 68 to 84 gallons per day per apartment unit. Whereas a single family house is much more around 165 gallons per day. Even though we assign a higher flow because that's at the source, you still have inflow and infiltration as you get down. And it kind of makes sense because you have more people in a house, more people do more things. You know what I mean? People are more likely to do, when you have bigger space, you just use more water. You run the sinks more, you have more kids that wash their hands, you have a lot of things that aren't necessarily there in an apartment complex. So your flows will go up at a lower percentage than your organic loadings. So, and before we were pretty close because there weren't that many apartments in here. There was, but we've been used to them. There were not that many new apartments. They were part of our overall evaluation. Now you've had an influx of 3 or 4 apartment projects. It's going to kind of skew the analysis. So I don't want you guys to have a negative look at, wait a minute, we've been concentrating on sludge. And Brent's been talking about how his guys are improving that, but our sludge costs are going up at a much higher percentage than our flows are. So I kind of want to prep you as a board for that so you can explain that. And we can also evaluate it. As part of our capital budget, I pushed out the evaluation of the sludge process to the years 26 and 27. I did that on purpose because the majority of the apartments are going to be connected in 24. So I'll now have all of 24 will be kind of a hodgepodge, where most of the connections are probably being made. But 25, I'll have a full year of not being influenced by these a significant number of new residents, and Sora West and others, So I'm going to want to start to evaluate that. You guys are much harder to evaluate than a lot of my other municipalities. A lot of my other municipalities are 90% residential. You guys have a lot of restaurants, which have a very high organic load. You have a lot of apartment complexes, which have a high organic load. You guys aren't a, 90% single family and townhouse development. You guys are kind of an anomaly to the industry standards. So as we go through, a lot of the matrices that I use for evaluating my sludge process, other places don't necessarily work here. So what I want to do is develop that. And then kind of you guys see that as part of your chapter 94. And it sets the table when we start to do these evaluations in 26 and 27 of how, because once we get these things through, I want to kind of concentrate, and Brent's already done a great job on reducing our operating costs. We've kind of done a great job on removing I&I. That was kind of my first priority when I got in here. Let's get our I&I out. We've got a handle on that. Not that we can't take our foot off the gas on that. Now let's reduce our costs here at the treatment plant by reducing our sludge and reducing our electrical costs. So electrical, we got the grant and we had the upgrade to reduce with new energy efficient stuff and new equipment. So I'm going to handle the majority of my potential electrical savings through that upgrade. So the only last remaining thing for us really to optimize and reduce your operating costs is sludge. And that's something that is getting significantly, it's growing at a much higher rate than anything else. Your electrical costs, your unit costs, you're fixed in for a 3 to 5 year contract. You know, so there's not a lot of things I can do besides use more energy efficient equipment. It's not night and day. Does it have a big impact over 10 years? Absolutely it does. But sludge is going like this. We saw that in the last contract, how much our sludge costs went up. So before that contract goes up, and I don't think it's going to go down, landfills are filling up. It's getting much harder to get labor for people to haul it out. Trucking costs aren't going down. So that's something that I think is the best opportunity for you guys as a board to reduce, to serve your customers, is that's the only thing that we can control anymore. You know, labor costs are labor costs. I need X amount of guys to run a plant. You know, we have things like that. You know, we are looking at in the future, putting a SCADA in so we can do a little bit more remotely and it'll be a little bit more efficient that way, but that's not going to be significant. Sludge is a significant line item. So what I want to do is I'm kind of expanding the work that I'm doing on the Chapter 94 to kind of look at how I evaluate it and how that changes over time, because I like to see a trend and I like to have that set up that I can kind of look back as much as I look forward as part of that evaluation. So that's a long way to say there's going to be a lot of information, and I'm not looking for you guys to grasp it all, but I want you to know that I'm planting a seed for a future evaluation. And why are you looking at this sludge and this organic? Like, you know, why are you doing that? I want you guys to understand why I'm doing that. So that way you guys also kind of know, all right, this is what it's been. I've heard it 3 times now. This is how it's going to impact us. And this is why or why not we do a project. You know, that there's a return on our investment. Or we're doing about as good as we can do, and there's not a whole lot of potential there. That may be the result. You know, there's not always, you know, a guaranteed low-hanging fruit. There was before, but Brent's pulled 80% of that fruit off that vine already, you know, by dewatering and doing that. So now we're looking at, instead of going from, you know, 25% volatile destructions to 20 to 38, he's now at 30, and I may not be able to get to 38. But they're the things that we're really going to look at. And then basically what you do is that you then evaluate that by having a baseline of did our work help? And at the end of the year, was it successful or not? It sounded great when you made that presentation, Fred, and that's how I track the work. That's also how I track, you know, how good of a work do we do on I&I? You know, we added units and our flows went down, and it wasn't an extremely dry year. It was more of a loam. So that tells me, are we getting a return on our investment? Or am I getting to the point where you should just be maintaining it? There's not a lot, and emphasize grants and other things the way we did this year on the electrical. So it really helps me prioritize I say next year's work, but the next 5 years work of really where is their potential. So as much as it is a report card for you guys, something to report, it's more of a calibration for me to give you better guidance. It's my chance to really look back at the last 5 years, project for 5 years, and then next year I'm kind of critical of what were my projections last year and how did I hit them? And was it expected? And if it wasn't expected, why not? So, and I'll try to summarize some of that without having a 3-hour meeting with you and doing that, but just to kind of let you know, hey, these are my observations. This is what I anticipated happening. This is what actually happened, and this is why I think it happened. That helps me because you guys are a slightly different client than a normal client. You know, you're not all industrial, you're not all commercial, you know, you're not King of Prussia, but you're also not, you know, Warwick Township, Bucks County, you know. So that's kind of where I like to do it. And I think the more that I hear it, like you guys will gain that institutional knowledge to kind of see it. And that makes sense. And you can ask me better questions and be better critical and also answer, you know, questions to the public.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
All right, so because we had the influent flow meter not working in 2023 and we had to use the effluent flow meter, are you going to be able to use 2023 as a baseline, or are you going to average a few years as baseline to be able to then kind of plan?
I'll answer that in two parts. I always look back 5 years. And what I do is, when I look back to 5 years, I normalize it. Because when I look back at the flows from 5 years ago, I take my flow per EDU plus the number of connections that I've made since then, so I can compare it on an equal EDU basis. So I take the flow from back then, and there's a chart that's graduated, and I add in the equivalent flows that were added in for all these years. And I add the flow per EDU back then towards all these connections. The next year, I add the flow per EDU for that year towards all those connections. And it's kind of the chart actually goes like this, and that way I'm comparing apples to apples. So that way I'm really comparing what's the impact of two things, of the wet weather on our system and the I&I work that we did. So I back calculate in the impact of those connections. So I don't just look at the flows from 2019 compared to 2023. I take the flows from 2019 plus all those additional connections, I add them in. So that way I'm really comparing apples to apples. Took myself down my own wormhole. What was the second part of your question?
Influent, effluent.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So on the flows, I kind of always look at the effluent. I've never had a high confidence in our influent flow meter. So quite honestly, while I have to report that and I have to do my analysis, the analysis that I really do is on the effluent. The effluent is a very strictly designed, properly engineered, and good quality effluent flow meter. They put the influent flow meter in, it's a Doppler. But the type of flow meter they put in because of a regulatory requirement. So somebody just slapped on something right there in the best place they could put it and the cheapest thing they could put in. We're never going to have good influent flow meter.
That's for our system or in general?
No, for our system. And that's because a lot of treatment plants, it's a 10-acre field. They got the places that come in. Ours comes in and then it drops right away. We're shoehorned in. It comes in you want to have great laminar flow. So what you want to have is a straight pipe run and a flow meter right in the middle. Ours comes right in together. They combine a lot of turbulence, differing flow rates from differing things. The one size influence from the pump station that comes across from West Conshohocken. So when that pump station turns on, you got an inrush, it backs the other flow up. Pump station turns off, this stuff goes through. You got a lot of turbulence, and they drop right into our wet well. We have no room. And you see our treatment plant site, we don't have a lot. So then what do? You can put a magnetic flow meter on the pump station. The problem with that is that there's a certain amount of flow when we decant from our sludge thing that you're treating it twice, you're recording it twice, but only discharging it once. So that influences that because you're recording it twice. We have other internal recycles that come around and you don't have good conditions. So that's why I rely much heavier on that. For reporting to DEP, I have to use influent. It's a regulatory requirement. For my honest evaluations, I don't care if it comes in, Q in has to equal Q out. Is there a time delay as it goes through our treatment plant? Yes. Low flow day, maybe it's 6 to 8 hours. High flow day, it's a little bit longer till it goes through. But overall, when you look at it, I don't look at hourly flows. I'm looking at daily and really monthly flows. So it equals out. Sorry for another wormhole.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Next item is the liner project, phases 2 and 3. Really, we had to get these contracts closed out. They were basically delayed because they had the change order in, and then they just didn't want to finish the punch list. I believe they've actually got all the punch list work, I believe, completed now. So we sent an email to the authority staff today to ask them to go out and televise it again because it's in a liner pipe. My inspectors really can't see it. For them just to make sure that all the punch list item work is completed. And then I need to process the payment requests to close out the work and release the retainage. where this is important is that we have 2 grants for this. The grants close out, and I could get an extension, but I don't want to, on June 30th. So I have 6 months of 2024. So really where we're at now is we have to basically maximize our grant award. We may leave some grant money on the table only because the contract price came in less than the grant amount. The other thing is with the match money, like we really don't, as part of the grant that we get authority costs. We really don't have authority costs. It's part of the grant application, so I really can't use that. So as a result, I have to use my construction in progress as part of my match money. So, you know, we may end up a little bit short. Right now, I think I'm down on $1 million and not quite $1 million, $900,000 a grant. I think I'm scrounging around to get $7,000. So
Do we match on the grant number or the spend?
you match on the spend number. So you do match on the spend number. What we normally have is, and a lot of them, because we didn't know what change orders we were gonna have. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll use my engineering dollars as our match, because you already spent that money, and then we pay the contractor and that's the match. Here they just kind of use construction in progress, and we ended up with no change orders on the job. So I usually kind of try to save that money at the end for change orders. Here we didn't, and the one that we had was ridiculous and we denied it. So now I'm left with, I got a lot of grant money and I don't have a lot of money to use for match or and reimbursement, because the contract came in under my engineering dollars came in and they matched my engineer. They capped my engineering reimbursement at 10%. So anything you spend above that just goes against your match anyway. So we're down now where I'm working, you know, to try to maximize these things and to close these things out. We didn't spend enough legal fees, unfortunately. So I'm actually chasing them down for some, you know, some additional invoices, you know, just because it was small things here and there. But I mean, if we get down to $7,000, I'm pretty happy, but I never want to leave. I don't want you guys to all of a sudden be like, wait a minute, how'd you leave 7,000? It was because our contracts were more competitively bid than my estimate for the grant. So, but I am going to try to basically push that through in February, so that way we can get all reimbursement in March. I now have April and May and June to get all the checks and anything to close the grants out. Next two items, and I'll try to be quicker here, is now that we received the H2O grant for and I'm going to kind of do them in reverse order. So the project grant amount is approximately $2,181,000. That's the grant of $1,454,000 and a match of $727,000. Our cost estimate, which I basically took the original cost estimate, I inflated it by 15%, is about $2.8 million. So what I really want to do now is, as we proceed with the design, is have them give me an updated cost estimate. And then I'm going to come back to you, board, for a question. Do we modify the scope of work? Or do we pay it out of our capital reserve? So do you want me to back into that grant amount or close to it and reduce items? And if so, what items would have to be reduced on there? So really what I'm now doing is I'm reauthorizing Keystone Engineering, which we had authorized a proposal basically almost a year ago now. Hey, is your proposal still good? Because I didn't want to get a grant for $800,000, have them do a design for $2 million, and we not want to do it. Now that I know what that is, I will also need to know the grant contract, the actual grant contract. Where that's important is a lot of this is labor intensive. It depends on when the grant is. Are they giving us from the federal pool of money, which is Davis-Bacon prevailing rates, or are they giving us from the state, which is state prevailing rates? So that has an impact, which it's like 10–15%. It can be a lot on a job like this.
When you say prevailing rates, I mean, would be,
Okay, so we have to pay prevailing rate. The state
okay, labor rates.
labor rates, and the state defines it one way, the federal defines it another way. Now, luckily, where you're at here, Southeastern or 5 County and the feds isn't that much off. I have clients in Schuylkill County that it's like night and day, you know, out there. And honestly, most contractors down here pay guys prevailing rate anyway, because that's what skilled labor costs. So what I'm asking them is giving them, hey, listen, first update your kind of budget and your scope of work to make sure that since you did this report 2.5 years ago, that even though I added these percentage increase, is it still there? Because I don't want to come back with a $3.8 million project, with them designing it. So A, verify your proposal, and then B, let's look at the scope of work, update your cost estimate for that scope of work. Let me go back, start your design, let me go back in, and if we need to modify that, because it's not only you guys, it is also Plymouth that's got to pay 26%. So I want to come back and say, hey, listen, do you want to come out of pocket 600,000, of which you guys pay 74%, they pay that, or do you want me to reduce the scope of work? How do you want me to do that? With that said, at the same time, we're now integrating that with the influent pump station control panel. So we had that done before, and we picked the control panel supplier, we did all that, but now we're going to integrate that, even though it's a separate contract and not necessarily part of the grant, it's got to be consistent with that. I don't want to put that ahead and now all of a sudden I'm doing all these other electrical upgrades and the two didn't match. I got a 24 model or a 23 model and a 24 model and you dummy. So we basically suspended that. And when we suspended it, I'm thinking I'm getting this grant was going to be awarded by the CFA during the summer of last year. Here we are now, but it's just every month it just kind of slipped and the logic didn't change. It's just another month. So we're going to be doing both of those. So Brett and I are going to meet on a Saturday, kind of go over that once I get everyone re-engaged. But I wanted to kind of hold off on Keystone. I'm going to give them a chance to say, hey, listen, your proposal is a year old. Is there any changes? It's about $100,000, like $105,000 is actually what it was. They're also doing a significant portion of the inflow pump station control, but now there may be some times where we'll be able to kind of make sure that they're in concert. Those two things that there's no way that I'm not doing something and all of a sudden I'm using ProPBus. There's different logic controllers that they all talk when they all go down in through there. I had issues with that where I put a year-old VFD in and all of a sudden those two didn't communicate. Where that's important is, well, we're not doing it for 5 years or 4 years, is we are going to put a SCADA in. They've all got to be on the same language for the SCADA to really work. So you've got to have all, and that way we're upgrading all of them at the same time. It's kind of like you don't want to have Windows 10 and Windows 15 and that kind of stuff.
So there isn't one standard, or is it dependent upon the manufacturer?
Depending on the manufacturer. They all kind of switch out and they make everything obsolete over time. So, and it's probably what it is it's really the contacts and the signal that it sends back. There's just different languages that they use. And so long as they're all the same, you're good. I've run into problems with old VFDs, 12 and 15-year-old, or not even for that old, more than 10-year-old VFDs. All the new ones, they just kind of said they stopped supporting that. So all of a sudden now everything that needs to be upgraded, when I replace 1 of 5, I got to replace all 5 rather than just replacing that one because I can't have them both talking.
What's a VFD?
It's a variable frequency drive. So,
Yeah.
yes, variable frequency. So what that does is it takes electrical power in and basically it converts it to it controls the speed. So instead of, think of it like a gas pedal, it basically, it takes the hertz and it reduces it, so just like a gas pedal. You can make the same motor go faster or slower by controlling it, based on whether you're controlling it on level, time, whatever you have. So they're basically the controllers, and we use them not only for control, but basically it reduces the inrush into your motor. So we used to use a thing called soft starts, but basically instead of it starting and spiking right up and coming right back down, it stores up energy and it ramps it up slower and goes down. So you don't have that massive inrush. Where that massive inrush is when you lose power and everything shuts down, everything starts back up at the same time. You'd need an electrical service that would be 15 times bigger than what you need when it's running. Now you only need it 2 or 3 times bigger because of this. And that's something that that also controls. This isn't 100% technically accurate, but in reality it is. it controls the efficiency of your motors and how efficient it can be. Because you can reduce the speed and set the speed down on the VFDs so that instead of pulling 50 horsepower all the time on a cross the line starter, you're gonna pull 35 horsepower on that motor. So you can actually reduce your electrical usage. And there's actually programs that we'll look at a couple of years from now where we may be controlling this on electrical usage as much as anything else, along with flow, just to reduce our costs. So it's a technology that our electrical usage is very low because of the technology that we have. If it was another plant, I've done it on almost all my other plants. Here, other plants, I'm controlling a 75 horsepower blower and 13 of them. Here we've got 9 5 horsepower motors on this VFD. There's real small motors. So for a January meeting, that was an awful lot for an engineer's report. I will answer any questions.
I have one question related to the grant match and the budget line item that we put as a placeholder for that. Are we okay with the number that we put in based on what we received?
So last year we were pretty close to what we have so far. So depending on what this last residual.
And as far as you're talking about the liner grant?
So yes, for the liner, but I was actually talking about for the H2O grant.
And let me answer the other one. This is all found money to you because you've basically spent everything besides the retainage. So you're actually getting, you've actually spent more money in 23, you're getting the reimbursement in 24. Where the question on the other one was, she said, I think a lot of that, the match will probably come from capital funds, which is different than your operating budget. But then really, it's not just the match. It's, I don't know how you guys budgeted it, because I don't know if we really did a capital budget on this, is the fact that there could be that delta between the grant project of round numbers 2.2 million and the project estimated cost of 2.8. So once we figure out, is that 2.8 real, we know the 2.2 is there, of which 1.4 grant, 700,000 match. That's kind of fixed. That delta will be a discussion, because I don't know what the options are to reduce the scope. I don't know how important or not important it would be. Are they frilly stuff that we can just do at a later project? Or you know what, you're stupid. Once you got the plant down and you got the generators here, you got to do it all. You got to spend, not that you have to spend the money, but highly recommend that you spend the money at this time, because it would be very hard to replicate that later.
The 2.8, that doesn't include the pump station control.
No, it does not. Now, the pump station control budget was updated. It was originally, when we first started, it was 175,000. What I put in the capital budget, which I think is high, is 400,000. The reason for that is originally the pump station budget was just going to replace the controls in there. Now we're putting a brand new enclosure out there. We're putting a new roof over it. The reason we're doing that is the variable frequency drives don't work very good when they're very cold out, and they don't last as long. And it's even worse is the hot temperature. So the two things that we're doing is not only putting air conditioning in there, but more importantly, preventing direct sunlight on there. It's in a stainless steel cabinet. You put something in a stainless steel cabinet, it's 90 degrees out. It's going to be 160 degrees in there if direct sun hits it. Also, for our operators out there, when are they really operating inside that control panel? When it's raining. We got a major storm event. So I don't want them working on and trying to retrofit, change out a component in the middle of a rainstorm when they're getting pelted by rain with electrical stuff. I want to have a much larger enclosure. It's also expensive work, because you need to basically take this stuff out, put a temporary setup, put the new one in while keeping it operating. It's not like I can say, hey, we're going to shut down the plant today. I actually am kind of contemplating, maybe it might be easier and cheaper just to run a bunch of Godwin pumps and bypass pump the whole thing. And that way the guys can just strip it out. They don't got to worry about it. That's great until you get a rain event. But that is something that we had evaluated before. But now that we're changing the whole scope, I'd rather spend a little bit more money. Board's decision. I would recommend to spend a little bit more money and do it right the first time, rather than trying to try to save $10,000 and do that. So I just increased the budget enough that we were more than covered to do it correctly with unknown changes in what the costs are gonna be as we went through there. I will give you guys schedules and milestones where we're at on both those. Now that we're not waiting for anything, we can kind of push forward. But I'm also with what the scope and the budget is. That's more what I'm more concerned about, because I mean, we do have a lot of capital reserves right now, but it's limited. Like, you can only spend that one time. You're not gonna have this multitude of $1.7 million in tapping fees showing up. I just don't see it, you know? So I kind of want to really preserve that principle to last as long as possible. That's a board decision. My guidance would be, hey, just because you had the money today, you're not going to be able to replenish it. We aren't making that huge profit margin on this thing. It takes a long time to build this thing up. What can we do to preserve that? Especially right now when you're making 5% return on your money. You know what I mean? That the millions that we have in there, the money that we have in there is paying for future projects, you know, and the more grants we get. So, and you guys have also been awesome on grants, you know, so.
How much in the capital account?
Right now, there's
5.6.
5.6.
Sounds like a lot, but it goes quick. It goes quick on a plant this size. It goes quick. I mean, if you wouldn't have gotten the grants that you've gotten, including this one, you know, you guys would be almost $4 million low. That's been the impact of grants. There's no guarantee a grant's gonna happen in the future.
Question. How do you fund that if you don't? With assessments.
You would have to raise your sewer rental rate. And you'd have, basically what you would do is you would basically take out a loan. You pay for the project out of a loan, and you would pay the loan back through your sewer user rates. The problem is the loans extend almost longer than the equipment. So you can end up stacking up a series of loans where you're paying on something twice. Because you're still paying off an old loan from 15 years ago, and now you're replacing that equipment. That's kind of where that's why we look.
Grants.
Yeah, and that's why we look at our capital budget as being a 10-year plan. So you can kind of see that, because the next step in the cap is how do you cash flow?
Any other questions for the engineer?
Could I ask what is it? Is it allowed? Is that not supposed to?
Can he ask in the middle of?
If you would like, this is the discretion of the chair, but we should ask that you come forward and you identify yourself and indicate whether you're a resident or a non-resident.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jack Ambler. I'm a resident here. I was just curious about the solids testing you're proposing around the sludge. Is that a large project? What aspects are you trying to look at there? Are you looking at like operational production of sludge, or you're talking about just the quality of sludge, or you know, what you're gonna pay for it,
Basically,
landfilling?
how many pounds of organic matter came in and how many pounds left? So this year's evaluation is just how many pounds came in and how many pounds left compared to other years.
Yep.
Did we put more out per capita or per connection now? And how do we do that? What I'm looking at is for performances, we pay per ton as it goes out. So if I reduce my water weight and increase my solids weight, I pay the same per ton. So the more solids I put in, the less water I put in, the more efficient I am, because it's all pounds of solids to me, but how many wet tons? So that's really what I'm looking at.
So how you operate the thickener, I guess?
Yes, how I operate the thickener, how I do all those things. That's really what I'm looking at. It is, what does it cost me to dispose of that? And how do I more efficiently do that? It's not really the quality. The quality actually, how much I digest it and how the bugs eat themselves is a component of that. But it's not like I'm trying, unfortunately, what comes in is what goes out. I
They don't
can't
charge
change the
anything
quality.
different if you had like a more digested sludge or not. They don't charge you any different.
Nope.
Yeah.
All they
just care
care
about
about is a volume.
volume.
A volume in pounds. So the less water I put out, the less trucks I gotta send out.
Thank you.
No, no problem.
Thanks for the question.
Hey, sorry, one more question. Once it comes in for the liner grant, where does that go in the budget? It comes in 24. Where does it?
It's gonna go up in the balance sheet, not in the. So it actually moved up into the capital, like up more in the capital page in your assets.
Okay, but it's not in the capital account.
No. Well, no, because we didn't pay for those expenses, so it'll stay in the operating account,
I see.
not moved back over to capital. If those expenses are.
And the expenses all came out of our operating in previous years.
Yes, we have moved, a couple of times we have moved money from capital to cover some
Yeah,
things, but for the most part, it's come out of operating.
Anybody else? George, anything else? Okay, with that, could I have a motion to accept the engineer's report this evening?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is our operations manager report.
All right, let's start with a comment on what Fred was saying about the liner project punch list. After getting that email today, I sent Vinny and the guys out there, so they're on it. They start inspecting the manhole stuff. They're actually setting the camera up now for the 30-inch pipe that they're gonna go through. So we definitely want to get that done. I want to try and get that done by the end of the week for you. So I saw that. I put it right away. So let's get that moving. As you probably see in my report, a lot of my report, this from January is the same thing. It's all reports for 2023. So that's where most of my month went. My one action item, and I hope you all saw, was the renewal, or the consideration of the renewal of our property and liability insurance. Obviously, one thing jumped out, I'm sure it probably jumped out at everybody, is the premium increase. Sure, we all saw that coming after the last year, so. Besides that, I mean, it's all pretty much the same thing as last year. Same company, Travelers.
Questions for the operations manager report? Hearing no questions, could I have a motion to accept Ed's report? Oh,
Accept the renewal first and then accept his report.
the renewal for travelers first? Okay. Could I have a motion to accept the renewal for travelers insurance for 2024?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Accept the operations manager.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Shannon, for catching that.
Sure.
And next up is collections and maintenance reports. Any questions on that? Hearing nothing on collections, I have a motion to accept.
I will make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We're both collections and maintenance reports. Yep. And now we're looking at the executive director's report.
Just to elaborate a little bit more what Fred talked about the sludge. As you know, our sludge costs about $100 a ton. You can expect it in the next 5 years. I would expect it $300 a ton. We've done a lot of extensive reviews on the sludge. And, we reseed our digesters with outside waste, just no different than if you reseed your own digestive system to try to jumpstart that. We're in a standstill due to the fact that I was continue to wait for our equipment for the flood that we had with our for our transfer of primary sludge. Once we get this equipment, it's going to open up a better opportunity to us to get a little bit more concentrated sludge, which Fred said about, get our volatile reduction up more. So we have a game plan once we get this equipment to optimize the sludge even further. So hopefully as Fred evaluates and then reduce our only sludge going out the door. So again, it's a way to the quick one. We've been promised every month. It's supposed to be here, the supply chain is still there. I'm hoping by March, we'll have all that put back online. In reference to stormwater, we had our last public meeting, with the public last week. Ed did a fine job. I was not available. I was actually in Alabama to see my son get hurt during ice hockey in his career. So I was on the phone. Ed did a good job. And Tyler did a good job as well. And our next aspect is waiting for how the borough proceeds with their end, all the items of storm. So we're at a standstill until we hear further back from the borough. We're at status quo there. The plant has been running very well. I don't think we have any other issues with the plant. I mean, the storm events, we had some extreme rain events over the last 2 months. You heard Fred talk about our collection system. I mean, it's unbelievable in regards to, we have these huge range events, and I call Ed and I are on the phone all the time, and no issues. It's odd to hear that. It really is. I mean, the system's tight, and the plant handles it, even a small increase in flow. So to move on to my first item is a credit card for Ed. I think it's prudent that we optimize how we purchase items. I mean, there's checks and balances myself. Anything that Ed purchases approved. I think it's time that we actually have our staff able to have their own credit card. That we can, I mean, most of the stuff we do by credit card instead of dealing with our finance director always having to order and stuff. So I would like to to receive approval to allow Ed to have a credit card.
Do we have a credit card policy?
I think we do. I think we adopted one, more than a few years back, but I can double check.
Let's see if I can pull the policy just to make sure it's up to date if we're going
Yep.
to.
Yeah, I believe the limit was a $5,000 credit card, but
But I think we also did that one.
right, what was, yep.
And everything before it's purchased actually has to go to myself before it's even purchased.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to update policies as we start making decisions like this moving forward.
We need a motion on this thing. Michael, we need for Ed to be able, or is it just?
Most,
Well, I don't think it requires a board vote. I think the board can give you some direction from here. That you'd like to see the policy first, and then once we determine what the policy is, the board can.
Yeah, we could do that via email.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you guys?
The next item is dealing with our 2023 audit. I would recommend Brendan Simpson to handle that. As they did last year. I know last year it took us a long time to get through our audit due to circumstances with our Plymouth agreement going back and forth. I have a not to exceed $50,000 for this year from her for Brendan Simpson to handle that for us. How much was it last year? Was
it was a little over 50,000, whatever. Because of that Plymouth agreement and the extension. As long as there are no major hiccups. Should be the 50 grand. She did say there may be some hiccups with the transition from Harris to Cassell. She's not sure yet until she actually looks at it, but she doesn't seem to think there's gonna be a problem, but you never know. Yes, yep.
make a motion in the sprinkler system. 2022.
A motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Obviously, the 3 and 4, I'd like to report, last item is I would like to have executive session to discuss personnel.
Can I ask, the stormwater manual you sent out, so I know we discussed this, who did the appeals go to? They go to HRG or did
It will come to us.
so will it go to you or does it?
It would actually go to us and we'll bring it, but that's.
I saw there's a rain barrel, sorry, credit available. I think the EAC had the rain barrel program. I wanna work with them. Advertise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the discussion around stormwater will start kind of rolling forward. Because we didn't put a budget out for that or anything at this point. We just put a very raw numbers. But we're gonna have to build on that because it is going to be a build upon project, right? Yes. So we're gonna hear what the MS4 requirements are for 2024, 25 as we move forward.
And it'll be prorated based upon what the borough adopts. Once the borough, if they adopt everything, prorated necessary bills. To the rate. That includes my report, other than that, I'd like to get that section.
Okay.
And I would. Like, I think we'll, if based upon executive session, I think we could still have action items coming out.
Then we should.
Then I won't close the meeting.
recess. Yep, then we
Okay.
can go in the back.
Yep, all right, so at this point, we'll recess the meeting, we'll do executive session, then we'll come back out and accept your report and move forward, okay?
I'll just take our word for it.
Okay, thank you, we are back from executive session, and we had matters of personnel that we discussed in executive session.
Thank you.
Turn it over to the solicitor, Mr.
As discussed, we would ask for a motion to provide raises for 2024 for Edward Mungan, Shannon Stewart, and Linda Usiletti of 4%.
I'll second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
We would also ask for a motion to provide for a $2,000 productivity incentive for Edward Mungan, Shannon Stewart, and Linda Usiletti. And in case it's not clear, that's each.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, we would ask for a motion for a productivity incentive for Brent Wagner in the amount of $5,000.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any other business?
I have no old new business or new.
Anyone old or new business?
Accept my report. Oh, we didn't accept the executive.
Darn, I said I wasn't gonna forget that one. Okay, with that, we need to accept the,
Motion to accept the executive record.
there you go. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and we determined we have no old new business. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Wait,
I will make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.